Welcome to the Dropout Multimillionaire Podcast, where we talk about tactical business strategy, building high-performance sales teams, and growing your business. If you're ready to break free from the status quo and join the ranks of the Mavericks, the Rebels, and the Renegades who refuse to conform and instead build multi-million-dollar businesses, then buckle up, because here we go. Welcome back to this episode of the Dropout Multimillionaire. We're continuing our training series on sales. And today we're going to focus on box number 3, which is the presentation box. We've talked about the introduction. We've talked about the fact finding. Today we're going to talk about presentation. Now you finished your fact finding. You should have found out everything you needed to know. You know their why. Why are they buying? Why are they buying from you? Why are they not buying from the competition? You should know their when. When are they looking to buy? We need to know the when so we can find out if we have a serious customer or not. We've figured out everything that they're looking for. We've let them set the price range within the parameters. We've made that connection. We've used a lot of at-ease statements. We've done positive affirmations, which we don't get into because we don't have enough time. That's part of our one-on-one coaching. But at this point, they should have already talked themselves into purchasing your product if you have done your job correctly, okay? So we move into the presentation. The presentation is not, I repeat, not about regurgitating everything there is to know about your product or service that you're selling. That is the last thing you are trying to do, okay? What we're going to do here, and I always use car sales as an example, we're going to try and take what they've said and make them fall in love and talk themselves into buying or selling, right? Let's get started. What we're going to focus on here are concepts, not specifics. Specifics on your product is one-on-one coaching. Conceptually, however, whether you build these scripts or whether I do, these are the things you want to remember. Number one, if you're in your presentation, you need to talk as little as possible. Too many salespeople lose their sale because they won't shut up. They talk themselves in and right out the back door. Talk less, right? We talk about in the book that people are only going to retain about 20% of what you say in your sales presentation 30 minutes later. Okay, they're not going to remember everything you've said. The only thing you want to focus on are the highlights of your product, and back to your fact finding, highlights of why they've already talked themselves into buying it. So talking less so they remember more is extremely important. We talk less. We use our fact finding information in our presentation, and we talk as little as possible using positive affirmation statements to get them to that yes. Okay. In our presentation, we do things called pause for effect and check-ins. And we do that because we understand psychologically that when you're talking to somebody, specifically in a presentation mode, you might have the propensity to say things that confuse them. Okay, if you talk any technical terms, any industry jargon, you're probably going to confuse your clients. And we know that when people are listening and the other party says something that confuses them or they don't completely understand, their brain stops. When the brain stops, it stops because it's trying to figure out what you said and make sense of it. And by the time their brain re-engages with you, you've continued talking, and now they're lost in the conversation. And now their brain's trying to play catch up with what they heard before and what it heard peripherally while they were thinking about what you said, and now what you're currently saying. And their brain is this big jumbled mess of trying to play catch up. And when it's playing catch up, it's not retaining the information that you're giving them. Okay. So if it's not going to retain the information, and we know this, we have to overcome that objection. Remember, everything is about overcoming objections. And we do that with pause for effect and check in. And it works something like this. If I'm selling you a backdoor solar panel, we've talked about, I'm selling you a solar panel, I will say, hey, by the way, the option we've talked about is, 1.1 gigawatts. Little Back to the Future reference there. Now, do you remember what I told you about 1.1 gigawatts? Do you understand how that works? That is a question and a pause, and I need a positive affirmation response. If they go, re-explain that to me again, what I now know is if I had not stopped, made that pause, and did my check-in and kept talking, they would have been trying to figure out what the 1.1 gigawatts was, and they would have stopped listening to me. This gives me a chance to reaffirm the information I've previously given them, make sure that they completely understand it. Their brain is engaged with my explanation. And when I say, now, does that make sense? They go, okay, I got it. That's when I move on. Okay. Not before. We have to stop when we say things, check in. Hey, by the way, did what I just say make sense before we move on? I might say, okay, so you got the 1.1 gigawatts. For that, we're going to do a 500 square foot. Now, you understand 500 square foot, how that's going to fit on your roof, remember? You understand how that works? And they're going to go, yes, I remember the 500 square feet, and it's going to take this much space on the roof. By the way, I know nothing about solar panels. I say, okay, so we got that. Now I'm going to move on to the next one. And we also talked about how we were going to save you, $1,000 a month in electricity. You remember how we talked about that? Yes, I remember that, right? Okay, so based on that calculation, if you remember, when we were talking back here, your payback period might be 12 months. Do you remember how I said that? Yes. So basically, with the option you chose, $12,000 at $1,000 a month payback, you have a 12-month break even, and after that, this thing's going to be a positive cash flow for you. Does that make sense? And they'll go, yes, that makes sense. Okay, now that's how you do a presentation. Explain something small, pause, let their brain catch up to you, check in. Did what I just explained make sense to you? Get them to either say yes or no or re-explain. Every time they make you re-explain, by the way, that means you're about to lose them. And then once I re-explain, now does that make sense? Yes, I got it. Great. And then you move on. I promise you your competition's not doing this, and that's probably why they left and came to see you, because they got confused. We also know about people, when they get confused, they don't want to admit it. They just stand there like this, like, yeah, I know what you're talking about. When in reality, they're completely lost. If you will use this pause for effect, check in with your client after everything you say, just do this multiple times. And by the way, each time you check in, you get that positive affirmation. You've gotten them to say yes again. You get 4 or 5 yeses. And you remember how we said that was going to save you money and it's going to help you and it's going to solve your problem? Yep. Got it. By the time you get to the end of your presentation, they have basically sold themselves. Now, let's go back to the first point I said. Talk less. Okay? You could probably talk for 2 days on your product. If you talk for 2 days, they're not going to remember it. They're going to get bored to death and they're going to leave. So figure out how to script the least amount of information as possible about your product. I mean, the very least. And maybe it's just 5 quick things. I talked about that car earlier. When you go to a car lot, they want to know what color, leather, cloth, standard automatic. Do you want to take it for a drive? They don't hand you the owner's manual and say, please read this before we take a test drive. They don't take you back to the finance department to explain how the contracts work. They don't talk about interest rates, what color, leather or cloth, automatic or standard. Do you want to take it for a drive? I want you to fall in love with my product. And when you pitch, you do the exact same thing. As least amount of information as you can possibly give them to get them to fall in love, make all the positive affirmation statements. And then if they want more information, they will ask. Okay. And that is an effective presentation. Okay. Once again, that wraps up this episode of the Dropout Multi-Millionaire podcast. Today focused on the presentation. And once again, there are multiple ways you can get more information. There's no way I can go into every scenario, every option, and everything you need to do or say. I'm trying to give you snippets or clips of the things that you need to do conceptually. If you want more information, number one, you can get my new book, which is called No, The Psychology of Sales and Negotiation. It gets into even more detail than we talk about here today. Number two, we have a mastermind called the Force Multiplier Mastermind, which talks about tactical business strategy, building high-performance sales teams, measured profitable growth, and finally, historical P&L analysis to predict the future of your business. That is another option for you. If you need specifics on your company, your sales team, your product, I do one-on-one coaching for that. Go to my website, drop me a DM. We can see if we can set something up. And with that, see you on the next episode.
I hope you enjoyed this episode, and if you would like to get more information on either of my books, joining the Force Multiplier Mastermind, or my one-on-one coaching programs, you can find me at www.brianwillmedia.com.